Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have Bruce Baker back joining us. And today we're talking all about money and breaking that money cycle down. Yes, Bruce Baker, if you don't know who he is, he's our Professional of the Year and Chief Business Builder with Workplaces. Ecstatic to have you back here. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, Jill. How about you?
I'm ecstatic. I'm in a good mood because I was away. I got a little tan, some color, and I'm feeling good. But let's get this opening perspective. I know, right? Since we got a little bit of a late start, let's get right into breaking the money cycle. Let's talk about this opening perspective here, which is what's the trap you see business owners falling into, most when it comes to money?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the big trap I see, people waiting. That's it. People waiting. What that means is not waiting for clients, but literally waiting for their bank balance to go up. So business owners sit in front of their screens, refreshing their accounts, hoping something will change. And it's like they're trapped at a bank window. You can imagine sitting outside of the bank with your tent over there, just staring in, waiting for something to happen. You believe that if you just watch hard enough, maybe the money will grow. But here's the thing, Jill. Money doesn't move because you watch it. It moves because you do. You move. Yeah. Meanwhile, the actions that actually bring money in, your sales efforts, your offers, your visibility, they're behind you. They're screaming for attention. That's the problem.
Got it. Well, why are we screaming for potential? What's going on? Pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, it's what waiting looks like. It feels like control. But what it's really is it's fear disguised as safety. So we say, I'll invest in help when I have more money, or I'll restart marketing once cash flow is better. But while you're watching that balance, that proverbial bank balance, here's what's actually happening. Your leads are cooling off. Your team is confused or it's idle, doesn't really know what to do. Your next opportunity is passing by. So you think you're managing, but what's actually happening is you're avoiding the levers that actually produce revenue in the first place.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Okay. So I want to hear, people sometimes sitting at the bank waiting. How do we get stuck?
Well, I'll give you a real story. I had a client, still a friend of mine, and his name was Nick. And he was days from shutting down, so he couldn't cover payroll, had a huge tax debt looming over him. His accountant actually said, you know what, it's probably worthwhile shutting the business down at this stage. So keep in mind that Nick had been in business for about 10 years, 11 years when this started happening. The thing with Nick is that he spent all day watching the numbers, hoping something would shift. I never forget sitting at his boardroom table, sitting there with his head in his hands. Bruce, this is not looking good. There's no way I can make this. But the longer he did that, really nothing moved, right? Yeah. And that just exacerbates it even further because he wasn't moving until he turned away from the bank and faced his sales team. And this is the crazy part. I was trying to drive him saying, where is this coming from? And the sales team's not doing this. The sales team's not doing that. And I said, well, the sales team don't really have a structure. They don't really have the tools, and they don't really have the direction. You're seeing the connection over here. So what is a big struggle for him and a struggle for probably every business owner that goes through the same mental process is that they're stuck and they see money as the safety point, but money is actually the outcome of action. So Nick gave it to them, right? So he showed up, believe it or not, he led. He installed process, he gave them support and held them accountable. And that's when the sales started coming in. And guess what happens when the sales start coming in? The numbers started to climb. Yeah. 3 years later, the guy's still in business and he's thriving. What happened? Well, he broke the cycle by walking away from a window and getting into action. And that window I talk about is that sitting at the bank, staring in the window, hoping something will change, but nothing does because money follows action. Not the other way around.
Wow. Money follows action. Say that again. Money follows action.
Not the other way around.
Got it. Awesome. Oof. Yeah. All right. Let's continue.
So, the shift people need to make, I think that's a big question for our listeners today, is it's not complicated. The emotion is complex, and I'll get to that in a couple of minutes, but the shift is simple. The difficult part about it is that it's hard to live out. The issue is, like I said or alluded to earlier on, is stop waiting for money to feel better.
Yeah.
And that is key. I want to pause there because if you think about how we're all brought up, especially in the Western world, right? We're
Yep.
all brought up this way. We're all programmed this way. The more
Yep.
money you have, the
Yep.
happier you'll be,
Yep.
quote unquote, right? The more you wait for the money and concern yourself or stress over, in some cases end up in hospital over, the less money is going to do what it needs to do at the end of the day. So start doing what actually makes money happen. It might be sending that offer, following up with old leads, running a
Okay.
promo, emailing your list, or picking up a phone. And I don't mean to downplay this or make this sound silly, but
No.
in my experience for many, over a decade now, it's the same thing over and over again. Business owners sit there watching the account. And when you sit there watching the account or
Yeah.
accounts for that matter, you become stuck. But when you act, money starts to flow because money follows motion every single time. It's clockwork.
Oh my goodness. It's so crazy, but we got to work on, shifting these mindsets, but it's so hard. That's why we need your expertise and your guidance. Help.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to talk about as well is that word fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really, at the end of the day, people say that they're just too nervous to make the wrong move. What
Yeah.
happens if I fail?
Yeah.
What happens if I make this decision and I take out this loan or financing for $100,000 and it absolutely fails? And my response to most people is that, yeah, what happens if that happens? I'll be
Yeah.
completely ruined, Bruce. So I said, okay, well, that's okay because no one can take away fear because fear is normal for us, right? But and I'm going to use a real scientific word over here, but stuckness is the real danger, not fear itself, not loss,
Yeah.
stuckness, right? Fear says pay attention. That's helpful,
Yeah.
very helpful, because the feedback we get from our minds or our brain saying pay attention is
Yeah.
extremely helpful, and that's fear. But stuckness says something completely different. What it
Stuckness. I
says is,
like that.
yeah, yeah, very complex, eh? Um, but it says, stuckness says this, it says, do nothing until everything is perfect. And therein is the trap, right? If you wait to feel confident before acting, you'll wait forever, right? And you could take this all the way back to someone that just wants to start up their business. They want to be self-employed, they want to get going, but they never really do it because of stuckness. They wait
Mm-hmm.
until the perfect time. Confidence, on the other hand, comes after action, not before it. People also get confused with this whole thing because they think at the end of the day, the rah, rah, rah makes me feel really pumped, and this is what I'm going to do, feeling confident, but they don't execute. Why? Because stuckness is what's governing them. But
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy what happens. It's absolutely amazing to see what happens when people take one little action after they've made the decision, right?
Yeah.
And it's a brave move, no doubt, but they take that one little decision, make that action,
Yeah.
and then what happens, right? It gets you out of that fear,
Fear.
right? Piece that makes you stuck, and it gets you moving, doing something, if that makes sense.
And we got to shift that mindset to get out of this fear factor. But
The
it's how are we really moving them past this fear?
Well, it's I can, and I'm going to talk about a tool in a couple of minutes, but or a couple of seconds over
Sorry if
here.
I'm
But
jumping ahead.
no, 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 not at all. You're asking the right questions. Is how do people get ahead? I said this to a client I just started working with a couple of weeks ago. I said, your accountability buddy, your coach, your mentor, your
Mm-hmm.
consultant, whoever, the books that you read, the courses that you take, they're all going to give you the right information. They're all
Yeah.
going to drive you in some or other way. But in order for me to take, or you as or a business owner to take the step into the unknown, moving from having the fear, but moving from being stuck to unstuck, right? Is a very brave move. I had a client this week named Conrad that did exactly this. And once he became unstuck, he had lots to lose doing this, no doubt. But once he became unstuck, it was just miraculous to see what happens to
Mm-hmm.
the business after he does that. So your ability to say, you know what, I'm closing my eyes, I'm going to put my foot into this cold water, and
Yeah,
man, it's going to wake me up. But you know what? It's not going to be comfortable, but it's something that I need to do because I've got the faith that there is going to be a return on my investment. And I can tell you, Jill, 9 out of 10 times you get that return on investment. 1 out of 10 times, unfortunately, you don't. But that's what makes people stuck. Well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not
it's
going to
so
do that. It's too
true. Yeah,
risky, right? Not because of the 9 out of 10 times, but because of the 1 out of 10 times. And that's how our minds work. Um, maybe now's a good time to share this tool if that's okay.
absolutely. Please do.
Right. So I call it the money outcome matrix. And
Mm-hmm.
what this does, and if people can imagine a block, right? And I'm going to explain this. So just get that block in your mind.
Okay.
Um, what this does, it helps you figure out why you're stuck, okay,
Okay.
and where to go. And it's not just within business. You can use it personally as well. But a simple 2x2 grid across the bottom, low to high action. So action moves from low action to high action. Up the side, we have low to high emotion. Okay. Now, within that block that we just created, remember, across the bottom is low to
Okay.
high action. Up the side is low going higher in terms of emotion. Now, we look at 4 boxes. When we have high emotion, low action, right, you're stressed and you're frozen. When we have high emotion and high action, you're busy, but you're reactive. Happens
Okay.
is that you're like that hamster in the wheel, lots of energy, but there's really no strategy. You're not going anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have low emotion, low action. You're disengaged. You're avoiding everything. I'm too fearful. I'm now in the stuck mode. But where we want to be is in that final quadrant.
Yeah.
Low emotion, high action. This is the
Okay.
sweet spot. Low emotion, not because you're not invested emotionally or because you're not excited or you're not driven to do what you need to do. As Mr. Tony Robbins always says, you're taking massive action.
Yeah.
This is where you're calm, you're focused, and you're moving forward. That moving forward momentum is critical. That's the last box. That's where momentum lies. And that's where money starts responding to you, not the other way around. And that's the key. Money has become the overseer, the master of
Mm-hmm.
how we act and how we drive. And we listen to it as opposed to our actions actually making it work or not work for that matter. I hope that gives a bit of a clear picture there.
It does. But see, I know a little bit more about the money outcome matrix than some of you because I've heard it before, but not all of you
Yeah,
have. That's why we're breaking it all down for you here with Bruce Baker, our business coach, profit coach, and so much more. So
absolutely.
you have to
Absolutely.
also work with people to figure out what's the problem, right? So where are you
Yeah,
finding most business owners landing in this matrix? Could you talk a little about that?
absolutely. Yeah. I will say that any business owner, regardless of stage of business, whether it's, startup, well into a couple of months, or whether it's a mature business, or a lot of businesses that are struggling to get out of trouble,
Mm-hmm.
um, most of them, and research is pretty clear, but also my own, excuse me, my own experiences over the years, it's always the same thing. Bruce, I have a cash problem. Bruce, I have a revenue problem.
Yeah.
Bruce, business is so filled with debt. Our debt equity ratio is just brutal.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can get out of it. And Jill, I promise you this, every single time, right? It's the same thing. The person who is the business owner is sitting looking at their Excel sheet, is sitting looking at their QuickBooks, whatever the system may be, looking at their bank account, hounding their CFO or their bookkeeper or whoever is working on financials. I'm not going to be able to make payroll. next week.
Yeah.
And probably, I'd say at least confidently, at least 8 out of 10 to 9 out of 10 times, it always goes back to me saying to them, I want you to put the money aside. And of course, I get the funny looks whenever I say that, but I want you to put the money aside because the money is your enemy right now. And I want you to think about what made that money for you in the first place, because
Yep.
no one starts a business from a point of failure. They start a business from because it is successful and they're moving forward with it. I want you to go back to that. I want you to think about that.
Okay.
What have you been putting off until the money gets better? And again, almost 8 to 9 times out of 10, we go back to those things that are preventing money from happening. And almost every time we do that and we flip it the other way around, what happens? We take those actions, even though there's a bunch of reluctance, right? Because people are being hijacked, quite frankly, on doing what they need to do. And then
Basically,
we
yeah.
see the same thing happen. People start taking the actions. And when they start taking the actions, things start to move. And from the previous example, like I'd given you, when Nick into his eyeballs with debt, there's no way his accountant is telling him to probably shut things down.
Yeah.
Like I said, 3 years later, he's got an incredibly profitable business, and that comes from exactly that.
Wow. Wow. And I love hearing these stories. You always give us the testimonials that we love to, reflect upon.
Yes.
And, what if someone's listening now kind of saying, oh, I get this. Wow. What this is, all right. It's making sense. Is there something they could start doing, maybe today to stop waiting and start pulling those right levers?
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to encourage people that are listening right now. If you are struggling with the cash flow in the business, if you're
Yeah.
struggling with debt, whatever the situation is, I want you to take a couple of minutes and I want you to write down on your whiteboard or wherever you want to write it down or type it in. I want you to say, you take the money out of the equation.
Okay.
And I want to encourage you to look at every single system or process, procedure
Mm-hmm.
that drives your business. And when I say drives your business, that drives the product or the service you sell, because
Yep.
that's the value. And when there is value, the exchange for that value is money,
Okay.
right? But there is likely going to be a place
Mm.
where you're going to find this is not working. And then what I want you to do is I want to ask you, if this is not working,
What?
what is the impact on your business in terms of generating the final outcome? And the
Yeah.
final outcome, believe it or not, is not money.
Yeah.
The final outcome is the value that you've committed to your end user, your client, your customer.
Okay.
And if that is curbing your ability to produce that final outcome,
Then
then money as a result will not come.
interesting. So we all kind of wake up a little bit. What do you think? Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right.
And you
I
got to
can
flip
tell
that
you.
question around. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that every business owner or wannabe business owner that's listening to us right now, we all need a proverbial kick at the butt,
Yep.
right, to get us going. We're in our own ways in many respects.
Oh, where'd you
That
go?
slight pause is
Perfect. There you
powerful,
go.
Jill.
It is. I'm like, no, not green again, is it? No.
So yeah, that's essentially what it is. So looking at money, money is not the important component.
Mm-hmm.
Your actions are the most important component.
True. And would you, Juan, I know we're kind of towards the end here, but I want to talk a little bit about why, this making this money move and really why it's so powerful.
Well, it's powerful because it's counterintuitive. It's powerful because humans are not built to make
Mm-hmm.
money, right? Money has not always been part of who we are. Money is a relatively modern approach to how we barter or how we used to barter back in the day.
Yeah.
So we are built for tangible outcome. We're built to create things, provide value to others so we can survive in groups or societies, whatever the case may be. But since I would say probably after the Industrial Revolution, especially
Mm-hmm.
after the Second World War, money has become the center of everything great and good. And it's not the evil and not all the stuff that people talk about. No one's demonizing money. It's a
No.
currency we need, right? But at the end of the day, when money is your reason for doing something,
Mm-hmm.
and if it doesn't exist, what do you think that tells the mind? Well, if
Yeah.
money doesn't exist, then I'm stuck. I've got no value. I can't provide any value. But we've completely forgotten about the very thing that makes it in the first place.
Very true. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And let's just, before we go, what's one belief that you think business owners really need to let go? I know there's a lot, but come on, bring it on.
There is one thing that people need to let go of is fear,
Got it.
right? And when I say fear, I'm not talking about the healthy fear, because you have to have some level of fear. You only grow a
Yeah.
business because of fear or trepidation, or that allows us to make some critical decisions and start thinking critically about our businesses. But what you have to get out of is the feeling of unstuck. Stop coming from a place of scarcity and start coming from a place of abundance. Your world, your business environment, your market, the globe has much to offer you in your business. You're the only one that's in the way.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. And if we want to reach out to you, how do we do so, Bruce?
You betcha. So go to our trusty website at www.4workplaces.com. The four is numeral four, workplaces.com, or shoot us an email at info@4workplaces.com. And we'd love to chat with you, and if we can, have a coffee with you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Bruce Baker. Enjoy the rest of your day. And to all of our listeners
You
and
too.
viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.